Hey, what's going on, Dropzone team? It's Jacob here as normal. We got Jazz Davis here. He's the owner of Modern Gladiators. Go ahead and tell him a little bit about you.
Oh, cool, man. My name's Jazz Davis. I own Modern Gladiator Defense. We specialize in home defense and taking your training from tactical to practical.
Remember that, tactical to practical.
That's right.
It's going to be stuck in your head.
That's
You got to
right.
make a jingle.
Yeah, tactical to practical. I like that.
It's like State Farm.
Yeah. I have my own Jake.
Right?
Jake's and State Farm. Yeah.
So we did a little bit of a CQB training today. We got some barrels set up over here. We got plenty of targets 1 through 4, and then we had some civilians that we have down here. See, clean.
Very important. Take note of that. If you don't see anything else, right?
Throw that away.
Yeah. That's old, man. That was before we started, man. Don't even look at that, man. Yeah.
So, what did you think, and what did you take away from today's CQB training of dynamic room entry, footwork, playing around corners? We did a lot of minimalizing your body exposure while hitting targets and positively identifying enemy targets. So what were your initial thoughts going into that?
I'll tell you what it really identified for me. Being an instructor and, somebody who lives this lifestyle, we do this day in, day out, it identified my weaknesses. And rather than me being upset about it, it made me happy because I need to work on that.
Yeah.
And it gave me something to work towards, because if you think you got it, you're wrong. You really got to be working on time. So for me, what I took away from it the most is that I need more practice with those types of maneuvers. You know, we both specialize in two totally different things, and it's good to work with somebody who is so strong at something that I'm not strong at. Yeah.
So what was one of the things that you noticed was the most impactful, and one of the things that you felt like was a game changer for you?
The light.
The light.
So for instance, it's kind of like one of those things, if you've never done it or no one ever mentioned it, you don't think about it. So most people, like myself, flashlight here because it's where you want it.
Yeah.
But when it comes to defending, that's not where you want it. And so having that flashlight up there was a game changer for me.
Being away from the head.
And not so much of doing it, but whenever you did it to me, when I saw what it was from the bad guy's perspective, I was like, oh, now I see why that works, because now you can see why you want to do it that way. So that really was an eye-opener for me. Definitely a game changer and something that I'm going to implement in my training.
Gotcha. Do you feel like anybody, and no matter whether you're military, law enforcement, doctor, nurse, mailman, should learn the stuff that we learned today? Room entry, light stuff?
Absolutely. So like I said, tactical to practical, that's not just a catchphrase. That's a way of life, because you see it on TV, you see all this, cool guy stuff. That's great. But you need to make it practical. So you take those maneuvers, like you taught me some tactics today, right? You take those tactics and apply those to your everyday life. So that flashlight thing is totally useful for a nurse or anyone, because I look at it this way, right? It's the light, the way the light is set up right now. You can't see it because you're watching from the video, but we can't see anything back here because the lights are shining in our face. But if you had that light, you have an equalizer, right? And so when you change from a light to a dark environment, and I'm going back to the nurse, coming home from work at night, normally she'd probably have, before watching this video, she'd have her flashlight here or here. But if she does this, now she's got a broader spectrum. Yeah. She can see more of what's going on. So man, it's useful knowledge for anybody, regardless of your path in life.
Yeah. How do you think the room entry tactics would apply to the everyday person that we learned today?
I think the room entry will make them respect that you can't just go get your LTC, carry your gun, and just assume that you're just going to go in a room and start blazing and doing whatever you want to do, right? It doesn't work that way. And I don't even think like that. And it still made me take a whole huge step back from what I am competent with and go, man, let me really think about this before I go in here, Yeah. So I think it'd be great for just anybody to try to clear a room one time. I say it all the time. When you do your dry fire practice, I'm used to doing it, and I'll admit I've been lazy for at least the last few months of coming home and clearing my house. I used to do it every night when I come home from work, because I come home at the same time. Some people might
laugh at you for doing it.
Yeah, right? But it's useful because you need to do it, right? And so because I hadn't been doing it when we came out here to train today, immediately all that stuff started showing up that I hadn't been practicing, So at the same time, I recommend to anyone who's a firearms owner, try to clear your house at least once. Now, you shouldn't try to clear your house, in a defensive situation, because unless you've had the training, you're not built for that, right? And we already know that one-man CQB sucks. You shouldn't be trying to clear any rooms by yourself.
Worst idea.
But it's one of those deals. You should try it so you can understand how it works. You can see from the perspective of even from the bad guy. You know, if you think about that, right? When you shine the light for me, I got to see it from the perspective of the attacker.
Mm-hmm.
So it's the same thing when you try to clear that room. Recommend this. You got somebody that you live with, somebody in your family, have them hide somewhere in the house. You don't even need a gun. Have them hide somewhere in the house and go through and clear that room and engage, you know, see what happens whenever you finally see where they are. It's going to change your entire perspective on the whole thing, because everyone thinks in a gunfight, bad guy's way over there, I got all this time, I get to rack the slide, get my everything right, all that. Everybody thinks that. It's not the way it happens. You come in the room and all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're right there.
Yeah.
So I would recommend, you know, take a loved one, somebody you cool with, let them hide somewhere, and so you can see what it's like coming into a room with some unexpected behavior. Like, for instance, what we did, we moved the targets for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And that helped because then there was no way to cheat. You didn't know where they were. It was different every time you come in. Yeah.
What do you have to say to people that think that is something kids should do, playing basically quote unquote hide and seek, or in the fact of, I don't need to do that because I'm not military, law enforcement, and I don't think I'm ever gonna have to be in that situation because I'll just call the police.
If you are of the mindset that you try to, and I'm talking to instructors here, I'm talking to gun guys, I'm talking to like the people who do this stuff all the time. If you are in the mindset of talking down to people like, oh man, you're a live action role play, man, you LARPing, you know, you shouldn't be doing all that stuff. Plate carriers and all that, right? Forget what they're talking about. If that works for your situation, or if that's what you even just you want to do it, you should do it. Forget what everybody else is talking about. I'll give you a good example. I Cerakote firearms.
Mm-hmm.
I would never Cerakote one of my firearms with some of the designs that I put on them for clients, right?
Yeah.
Bright red, pink, sparklies, all that stuff, because my guns are not for that. But if you're not out here doing this kind of stuff and that's your home defense gun, you have whatever color you want. You know, that doesn't mean anything, you know. So in that regard, forget what other people are telling you. Do what works for you. You and I have the same mindset when it comes to training. Mm-hmm. We tell people, you know, we teach you something. If it works for you, use it. If it doesn't work, then you need a different tactic.
Throw it away.
Throw it away. It doesn't matter what it is or who taught it to you. If it doesn't work for you, don't do it. So in that regard, forget what everybody else is talking about. Do what works for you.
Well, I just said that. That might be, hearing it from other instructors and other people, it might turn that light switch on for some and kind of broaden their horizon into the aspect of, maybe I should just try it. Absolutely. Maybe I should. What do you have as far as advice for people that are thinking about doing it but can't quite make that full step? Can't quite jump out of that aircraft, but they're looking.
Yeah. I'll tell you, this is how you handle it, right? Everybody in the entire world does something weird when nobody else is around. Everybody does something when no one else is around. Just wait till no one's home. It's like dancing, right? If you can't dance when nobody's around, right? Like what they say, dance like no one's watching, right? Yep. So it's the same thing when it comes to this. I remember when I first got into the gun game, my wife has a huge closet, and I would go and practice in her closet. Wounded arm, wounded primary arm, secondary, all stuff. And I'm laying in the closet and I'm doing this stuff. And she never saw me doing it. And the first time she saw me, I thought she was going to make fun of me. And you know what she did? She smiled and she stepped over me and she goes, "I'm glad you're doing that." So you never know what people's perception is of what you're doing. And so by me doing that and becoming a defender, it encouraged her to become a defender. And now as a couple, we actually practice some of these things at home. We have tactic days where we basically we will make sure all the firearms are clear. One person will be in charge of that stuff, and at some point in the day, the other one will call threat and just see how you respond to it. But that's kind of like going all the way around your question. But what I'm getting at is, if you're concerned about other people watching you do it, or you feel awkward about it, man, just do it when no one else is around until you get confident with it. Because if you think about it, right, once you get good at it, you don't care who's watching you.
Yep.
So practice it when no one else is around, and that will improve your confidence, and that makes a difference. I'll give you a good example. I don't remember the name of the people, but you remember when they were protesting pretty heavy, and the husband and wife came out, and they had the gun, and they were on the porch, and they're like, "I mean it." Yeah. That does not show confidence. I'll show you, even without a gun in my hand, right? If you come in my home or you're doing something, and I say, "Hey, get out of my house, that doesn't mean much. But if I say, hey, hands, hey, stop, even without a gun, right? Even just me changing my posture changes everything. That is nothing more than confidence. That's all it is.
Same thing when you blade off and have a conversation with somebody. We're having a conversation like
Right,
this.
right.
I eventually go like this.
Right.
I'm looking around.
You know something's going on.
Yeah, and I'm getting kind of my hands out.
Right.
You're preparing.
Confidence, right?
Yeah.
And that comes from what? Training, practice, all that kind of stuff like that. That's what I recommend, man. Grow by yourself, get the confidence, and then you don't care who's watching you or what's going on. And then, believe it or not, a lot of those same haters will be like, hey, man, can you show me how to do that thing? Hey, I was watching you, and I was wondering if, it happens all the time.
Yeah. So what got you into guns and instructing and teaching people stuff that you know?
If you've ever been in my class, you've heard this story a million times. I always tell people 3 terrible stories about myself because that helps them understand. So, like yourself, I served. I was a land administrator. I built networks for the Air Force. I did not have a gun job. I didn't know anything about guns. I wasn't good with guns.
You're disqualified.
Yeah, like barely qualified. It wasn't like
talking to you.
Yeah, everybody's like, oh, military, yeah, you can shoot, man. I did not learn to shoot from the military. I got into guns and I learned to shoot from necessity. So I teach from necessity. That's why my specialty is home defense and personal defense, because I've been in some terrible situations. The number one thing that got me into it, when I was 16, my mother had a gun held over there, and I ended up between that gun and my mom. And it was a pretty terrible situation. My mom got away, the guy got away. A couple things happened with that situation. One, it took the police about half hour, 45 minutes to get there. That's a long time. And so you are your own first responder, right?
Remember that specifically.
You are your own first responder. Nobody's coming to help you. And if you've ever been in any one of my classes, that's the first thing I tell you is no one's coming to help you. And even husbands and wives, as much as you love each other, you're probably not going to be there when that thing happens. But that terrible situation happened. But rather than being afraid of guns, my mom went and got training. So she's not afraid of guns. My mom carries to this day. She didn't let that negative affect her in a negative way. Yeah, it happened and it was terrible. But she said, listen, this is how we're going to overcome this thing. And as a family, we dealt with it. And so guns weren't taboo in my house. She sat us down. She talked to us. She explained why it was important to be safe with guns. So that was the initial thing that got me into guns. Second, I was in the Air Force with my wife. We were driving down a narrow road. It was raining one night. Guy walking on the side of the road. I went around him best I could. In his mind, I tried to run him over. And so he followed us to the house we went to. He broke in and he tried to kill us with a knife. And he came right in. And so again, I found myself between a projectile and someone that I love. And bottom line is, I just got tired of being a victim. I got tired of being taken advantage of. And one day I said, you know what, enough is enough. And that's when I began to train. That's when I began to fight, learn all these different things. Even to this day, my self-defense style is just reality. I don't train jujitsu. I don't do Krav Maga or any of that, but I will go toe-to-toe with you any day of the week because I've been through enough of that stuff, So that's kind of my background and what brought me into it. So even my style as far as pistols go and how I teach firearms, rifles, all that kind of stuff, it comes from a realistic perspective and not wanting some of those things to happen. So.
What got you into wanting to train other people as far as in this industry to protect themselves?
So the same thing. I have I've been through some bad situations, and I have friends who have been through some terrible situations, and I won't go into any of their stuff, but like as you do this job, you deal with other people's trauma, and you
hear the stories,
and a lot of things. And so I have heard and had loved ones, everything from sexual assaults to abductions to murders to all kind of stuff like that. And I hate bullies. I can't stand it. I shouldn't say I hate them, but I don't like it, man. I really don't like bullies. That's a terrible thing. And so there are too many people in this world who will hurt you for absolutely no reason. And I've seen it happen time and time and time again. And every time it happens, those same people who I'm talking about, they will say, man, I wish I knew. I wish somebody would have. I wish. And so I had enough of my own situations that as soon, how it is when you learn something good, you want to share it.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started learning, I was like, man, I want to show people. So like I said, I was a land administrator, and part of my job was to train other people on computer systems. So I was an instructor for a long time before I ever did this. And so it was just kind of natural. And so as I would teach people firearms for free in my home, people say, man, you should make this part of your profession, man, because you're really good at it and you have a love for people. So at the end of the day, that's where it comes from, man. Just a love for people and wanting to see people strong.
Gotcha. Second to last question here
Mhm.
before we end it here.
Mhm.
I know there's a lot of people that, especially in today's day and age, males and females, that are struggling with that confidence. I have a gun, I train, but I'm
Mhm.
afraid if I should pull the gun. I'm afraid if I should brandish it and
Mhm.
actually be in a situation where, oh crap, now I really need to use it. Should I pull it out? Because I could go to jail. I might not. What advice do you have for people that are in the gun industry but are still struggling with that confidence factor of actually being in a situation, actually having to draw a gun, and actually having to, should I draw, should I not? Am I going to go to jail because of it? What are the repercussions? And worried about all the little
Mhm.
minute things afterwards.
There's no substitute for good training. Period. If you don't know, you don't know. So
Yeah.
you can be terrified all day, but until you get the proper information, doesn't mean anything. Now, when I say good training, I don't mean best price, all this kind of stuff. Find you a instructor that actually cares about you. The difference between a mentor and a teacher, a teacher will teach you stuff. They want you to learn. A mentor is invested in your success. Find an instructor who is a mentor, who is invested in your preservation of life.
Putting the gun to the line.
Exactly. And so that's where we come from. That's why we vibe, because we think the same way, right?
Mm-hmm.
How many times have you went way over your training time just because somebody needed more time, and don't charge them any more for it? It happens all the time, right? And so it's not about the money for us. So even if you don't train with us specifically, because this is not a commercial, find someone who cares about your success and about you as an individual. That's who you need that information from. And I don't mean any disrespect, but I'm not talking about Uncle Fred. I'm not talking about your husband. Find an instructor, a certified instructor who has been through training, who can put you in the right place. That's how you overcome that fear.
That's great. That's a lot of great knowledge. I've said this exact same thing.
Mhm.
Like, don't go to a family member, somebody that's been shooting guns all their life.
Mhm.
Go to somebody who's actually trained to teach people in a right manner.
Because they're going to keep it real with you.
Yeah.
The number, I'm going to ask you a question. Do you know the number one injury on a shooting range or in the firearms industry? The number one injury?
Like where somebody gets injured?
Yeah,
Or-
the number one injury. Do you know what it is?
Gunshot?
Nope.
What?
Hurt feelings. That is the number one injury, is hurt feelings.
Yeah.
Because when somebody tells you, oh, you're doing that wrong, oh man, you get like that. But you usually do that when it's someone who loves you versus someone who is there to instruct you.
Yeah.
Then you take it as
Somebody who doesn't have
constructive criticism. You know what I mean? So the number one injury is hurt feelings. Get over the hurt feelings and get better. I did all kind of mistakes today. I did all kind of stuff wrong today, but I don't.
as an instructor.
As an instructor, right? But how do you get better?
Mm-hmm.
Someone has to be better than you. Like, you can't get better. So
Any champion or athlete or top person will say this.
I think that kind of comes from being in the military. You used to people yelling at you and telling you stuff, so you kind of like, okay, whatever. It's not a big deal. But to the average person who's never been through that, they take it as a heart thing.
Yeah, like you're personally attacking me.
Right. I remember complaining to my dad. I said, Dad, all the stuff's happening, blah, 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 blah. And he goes, son, you haven't suffered enough. And I was like, what? Two things happened when he said that. One, I took it as offense, like, oh, Dad, you don't even care about what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
The other part I took as, man, right. And what he meant by that was, you haven't lived enough life. He wasn't dissing me.
Yeah.
He was helping me.
Yeah.
But because he was my dad, I kind of took it like that. So it's the same thing when it comes to firearms training or anything else, Get through the suffering so you can get better. What does Lucas Botwin say? If you suck, you suck, right?
Oh, yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There's no gun modifications and upgrades won't help that.
Nothing, man. So yeah, that's my answer to that, man.
Gotcha. And then I think I had a final
You did
question
have
for
one
you.
more.
So
What you
the
got,
final
man?
question that I got was, what do you have, like final thoughts, words to say to civilians and instructors?
Instructors. We all need each other. We are all in this boat together. And even if you don't like guns, guess what? You're in the boat with us too. Because every time you go to HEB and that old man has got that 38 revolver in that plastic bag carrying it around with him, and believe me, it happens more than you think. There's guns around you all the time. You're part of that. You're in that boat. And if he does not train, you're still in that boat. So if he decides to try to save your life inadvertently, you're in that boat. So We all need each other, man.
Mhm.
And even if you're completely anti-gun, that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. I used to be anti-gun,
Mhm.
right? But I didn't hate on other people for liking.
Yeah.
It was never like, oh, I hate guns and you should hate them too, right?
Mhm.
We're all in the boat together. Instructors. Man, if you're a dirtbag instructor, I have no love for you, man. If you are just in this for the money, I have no love for you, man. If you do not teach to the absolute best of your ability, I have no love for you, man.
And you're in the wrong industry.
You're in the wrong
Not
industry.
the money making.
You need to. It is the money making industry if you do it right. Come on now. If you do it right.
If you do it right,
if you do it right.
is, but at the same time, it is you're going against the grain when you can be an accountant.
Sure.
Yeah.
I guess I think of money. I say the success of it is way up here.
Yeah.
You know, what you get is more than monetary.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. I got you.
You know, how do you feel when somebody shoots and you see them a couple years later? You're like, man, I trained that guy, man, and like see that, you know. So the bottom line is this: instructors, do your job. Civilians, people who are not instructors, we're in this boat together. So whether you have a love for firearms or you don't, we're in this together. And I'm talking to gun guys too. I saw a video the other day, won't say who it was, but they were very snobbish to new gun owners. And they really went hard on newbies. And I listened to the video and I felt bad. And I was like, man, if I was a new guy, I would probably quit because of what this guy said, you know. And what they don't understand is some people hurt people, right? And so they tear other people down to make themselves feel better. But at the end of the day, that guy that you tore down could have been the guy to save your life one day. So at the end of the day, we're all in this together, man. That's my final thoughts.
So then we'll cut it there. But great talking with you.
You too, man. Always
And
love training with you, man. Yeah.
We're definitely gonna sit down and talk a little bit longer and actually have a full-fledged thing going on. But appreciate your time and training with you.
Likewise, man. Dropzone Tactical, smoking crack. You ain't got to come out here and do nothing you don't want to do. Jacob let you smoke crack when you shoot. He'll let you drink a beer. Don't you worry about nothing. You ain't. If you take your LTC, he'll pass you. You ain't even got to shoot. Just come out here. And Tori over there, she'll help. So all you gotta do is just come out. He's getting away. There, look, he getting. There you go. If he.